7 Most barbarous punishments in the history of mankind. Number 1. The breaking wheel. The breaking wheel was a brutal punishment used to execute criminals in Europe from ancient times until the 19th century. The process of punishment was that the criminal would be tied to a large wooden wheel, and an executioner would break his limbs with an iron hammer. In this, the suffering of the criminal was excruciating, and the death was slow and painful. Sometimes, the executioner ended the criminal's life with a final blow or beheading. Their broken bodies were displayed on a pole as a warning to others. However, the breaking wheel was a symbol of cruelty and injustice and was eventually abolished in most countries. Number 2. Impalement. The impalement is a form of brutal punishment that has a long and gruesome history. It is a gruesome method of killing a person by stabbing them through the body with a narrow, sharp object, such as a stick, pole, or spear. Implements were common during the medieval and early modern periods, especially in Eastern Europe and Asia. It was mainly used as a means of execution of treason and enemies. The method of punishment involved inserting the spear through the victim's anus or vagina and pushing it up until it exited the face or shoulder. The pain inflicted on the victim by this punishment is unimaginable. Number 3. Flaying. Flaying, also known as skinning alive, is a method of slow and painful execution. This punishment is to separate the skin from the body of the living person with a knife or other sharp object. In flaying, the victim died slowly from shock, hemorrhage, infection, or hypothermia in excruciating pain. Flaying was practiced by Europeans, Chinese, and Africans for reasons as varied as political repression, betrayal, and personal vendetta. Flaying is one of the most horrific forms of torture and capital punishment created by man. Number 4. Death by sawing. Death by sawing is an extremely cruel and painful method of execution that has been used at various times and places throughout history. This punishment consisted of cutting a living person in half, horizontally or vertically, with a large saw. The victim was usually tied to a wooden frame or hung upside down to prolong their suffering and bleeding. Death by sawing was common in medieval Europe and ancient Persia, where it was a punishment for heretics, traitors, and rebels. Sometimes the victim was cut only up to their stomach to make them suffer even more. Number 5. The Judas Cradle. The Judas Cradle was a brutal torture device used in the Middle Ages. It consisted of a wooden pyramid with a sharp point on which the criminals were tied hand and foot with ropes. Depending on the angle and position, the device causes excruciating pain and injury to the victim's jaw and abdomen. These punishments would last for hours or days, resulting in the death of the criminal due to infection and blood loss. It was used to punish heretics, traitors, and witches. The machine was one of the most cruel and nightmarish inventions in human history. Number 6. The garrote. A garrote is a brutal method of execution in which a person is strangled with a rope, metal collar, or screw. The garrote was used in ancient Rome, medieval Spain, and other countries. It was mainly used to sentence people convicted of treason and espionage. In this punishment, a rope or collar is tied around the victim's neck to apply pressure, and the sharp point pierces the spine along the back of the neck, causing excruciating pain, suffocation, and an agonizing death. However, the garrote is considered a very cruel and painful punishment. Number 7. The brazen bull. The brazen bull was a gruesome torture device invented in ancient Greece. It was a hollow bronze bull with a door on one side and a pipe on the head. The victim was locked inside the bull, and a fire was lit under it, causing the metal to heat up and burn the person alive. The pipes would transform the cry of the hunt into a bull's roar. The pain of burning a human alive in a brazen bull was unimaginable and lasted for several minutes before death. However, it was one of the cruelest and most inhuman punishments in human history.